should just say, on if there is another picture of him, this is real quick, one last thing. Initially, they thought that the cause of death was a heart attack, and since his wife has been public about this, even on his site, she said, this is him with Dr. Gonzalez with Suzanne Summers, that when the autopsy, well, by this point, some people at the beginning weren't doing autopsies, so she did an autopsy, and they showed no heart attack, as they tried to tell them at the beginning, well, it must have been a heart attack. How else does that happen? And actually, they can, at this point, at the latest I have seen, find no cause of death. So I just wanted to put to.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So next we have Dr. Mitch Gaynor, who had been on Dr. Oz numerous times, and I am told was a personal friend. I mean, from I see over the years, it looks like he's been on the show and pictures of them together at various times. But here he is on the show, and I believe I just got to glance at this segment because I'd only seen the other one. But he's talking about Dr. who's an MD, and Mitch Gaynor talked a lot about using energy, sound healing, and he also was treating cancer patients and having great success. Countless patients of his have written me, even doctors who were patients of his, who have reached out to me. And with Dr. Gaynor, he had this book that just came out, had talked to Joe on the phone about the book not that long ago, and then again was found dead, and almost immediately outside New York City, in a small town. A lot of these happen to be in small towns like Dr. Bradstreet and the rest, was ruled suicide almost immediately. I guess he just suddenly decided, in the midst of a book coming out and all these great things and being on Dr. Oz, just having been on RT, Russian Times, on TV, just getting tons of press, there he is, then took his own life. And nobody I talked to says they're buying that story.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was, again, extraordinary, and the work that he did, and was able to, unlike some holistic doctors, actually get, maybe being in New York, he was able to get a lot of press because of the great work he was doing. And that show, that other picture, which everybody saw with him on Dr. Oz, if I'm correct on the dates that Dr. Oz posted, it was just weeks before he allegedly took his own life.
Yeah.
And the show as well. Both of those were recent. So.
Okay, next one.
Next one. Then here we have Jamie Zimmerman. And in the official series, I did not include any accidental deaths, but I just felt that hers was significant. And I did review some of the videos last night. I was up a little late looking through them I wanted to watch this again. She had been recently brought on as ABC national news correspondent. She also, which is publicly out there stated, was doing a joint venture and partnering with Deepak Chopra. Of course, we all know, another holistic MD. She was on her show talking about meditation, all self-described as like a natural, holistic, practicing holistic medicine. I don't know if that was her complete practice, but for ABC to have brought on a correspondent nationally at 31 years old, she'd accomplished so much. There are videos. She's already made a documentary. So she's was amazing for her age, and she was vacationing in Hawaii, and I think it was on the Big Island. And she was walking, not on a cliff or anything, but just in an area where on the video I watched last night, they explained there were no high tides, no nothing, just from what I understand, down on the ground. And she allegedly fell just from the distance from her head to the ground, supposedly hit her head, and was carried out to sea, where then she was seen. But allegedly no witnesses, again, like Dr. Gaynor and the others, at the time of her fall or death. So they say she drowned and then would have had blunt force, I guess, trauma to the head. So,
well, Erin, I think in order to make sure we have plenty of time for the other topics of exploration, why don't you talk about how many of these stories we could have gone into now, and then let's move on to what are the themes that are in common amongst them.
Sure. I think she was the last one there, so that was... Okay. So that was, and then we just have the group photos. But
yeah, why don't you bring those up too? Yeah,
those are the next one. So that was it. What was it? I know that's a lot. It gets kind of detailed on some of those. But with all these doctors, again, some were even found dead on the same day, from osteopaths and to others. I think I have 13 that were in kind of the official series, but then not counting those 29 holistic doctors who were sicken, poison, we would have 33 or 34 in total. I think it's 33 from when you start with Dr. Bradstreet and wind up on here where that was just the holistic doctors in the ambulances that did survive. And then these are more pictures of doctors found dead, many under mysterious circumstances. We have the one in the corner who allegedly fell off a balcony at his house, was a vegan cardiologist, outspoken in holistic practices as well. And so with the total, it would be 33. Others, some in mysterious car accidents who even the authorities say don't add up. These are all holistic I think every one of those doctors there would be holistic doctors. And this was all within, I think every one of them would have been in the last year. So that's, yeah. So 33 total.
So what do you see as the major themes that are in common to many of these people who were taken out?
With everyone, they were not just, even like, especially with the chiropractors who some might think are just doing maybe adjustments, or even with the medical doctors or DOs, there were a few exceptions, but most were holistic, and many were going beyond their, say with the chiropractors, just normal, maybe doing adjustments and helping patients like Dr. Hedendahl with overcoming serious illnesses, terminal illnesses. So I'd say, that they were extraordinary, and many were outspoken about vaccines. Not everyone, but I mean, when you have a chiropractor, some people might not. That's his PhD and has a radio show and very outspoken, like many of others of them were too, that spoke publicly and had traveled around the country. They weren't your normal, maybe just kind of small town variety doctors.
As best I could tell, many of them were working with the autism vaccine connection, some with cannabis oil, some with the GICMAF, this enzyme that seems to really boost the immune system against cancer. So it seems to me, if you had to boil it down, they were doing effective jobs at both helping patients and getting the word out on alternatives that might be very effective and might undermine the sickness business in one way or another, which is, most people know, is a multi-trillion-dollar business.
Oh, yeah, yes. Because of the platforms, many of them had big platforms. Not only were they writing about it, talking about it, Dr. Bradstreet and others did TV shows on just those subjects, GCMAP or on cannabis oil, or again, yes, speaking out on vaccinations, yes.
Okay, well, thank you for that update, and thank you for bringing this story to light. What I'd like to do is take just a few minutes to share a little bit of an overview of my research. I've been researching assassinations, unfortunately, for over a decade. And so it gives me the opportunity to look at the themes that are in common to a bunch of them. So let me just say how some of my research relates to what it is that you're sharing. First of all, George Bernard Shaw is known for saying, amongst many other things, assassination is the extreme form of censorship. So in going from this kind of micro scenario to the macro and looking at other sectors, there were in the early 2000s, in the first 3 or 4 years of after the millennium, there were over 30 microbiologists who were found dead under suspicious circumstances. And if you can bring up a picture of that, that'll help to just make this a human story. So you can see the similarity. You get a particular area, and then and these happen within a short amount of time. So these are many people who were working on different biowarfare things, on anthrax and so forth. And fundamentally, they were people who were in the know on what the shadow government, what the agencies, what the secret societies were doing, ironically enough, developing ways of killing other people who might get in the way of their agendas. So then we move on to the military. A lot of you probably know the Pat Tillman story. I won't go into that in depth now. He was an NFL football hero who went to, fight the so-called terrorists and ended up being killed under friendly fire after he had gotten a sense of what was really going on over in the Middle East, and he and his brother were eager to start talking about it. But this was go back to the other one on the military. There should be one more. Yeah, here we go. Many of you probably weren't aware beyond the fact that we were told that Osama bin Laden was finally killed, but we never saw pictures of it, never saw video, and then his body was dumped at sea. That was very suspicious to me, particularly because my sources had told me that he'd actually died years earlier. But the most shocking bit of information that really seemed to tip the scales for me on what really went on this is that 30 amongst these 38 dead were died in a helicopter crash. Of the team that supposedly took this guy out, 30 of them were killed in a helicopter crash, and then the rest of them were taken out died under mysterious circumstances. Let's put it that way. So if hypothetically I wanted to silence anyone who was in the know about what really happened with SEAL Team 6 in this so-called assassination of Osama bin Laden, the only way that I would be secure in trying to sequester that knowledge would be to make sure those people wouldn't be alive to talk. So these were all highly trained people in self-defense, and yet all taken out one way or another. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Next image, Goa. There have been a lot of rumors about suspicious things that have happened surrounding the Clintons for the last 20 to 30 years, from the Mena, Arkansas CIA drug smuggling to the whole Whitewater scandal, and then on into Bill's administration and a lot of Hillary's activities with Benghazi and so forth. And I had originally heard 33. I went back to check, and now it's closer. It's between 60 and 70 suspicious deaths surrounding them, the only one of which most people know is Vince Foster, who's pictured on the left there, who supposedly shot himself on a bench by a lake, near the White House. Okay, so that's enough of the images, but let me just mention some other areas so that you can see the theme here. There have been, as many of you may know, over the last year or two, many suspicious deaths of bankers. There have been over 70 of them. We've reported on a lot of them through Thrive. And a number of these, supposedly jumped off of buildings or were seen falling backwards off of a ledge or hung in their own closet, before they were getting married or something. Again, just not the circumstances that you would imagine them being suicidal. But again, many of them worked in the risk management level of these big banks, and they had a lot of inside information on the rigging of the gold market, the Forex market, of the LIBOR interest rate market, and so forth. So again, when the top people don't want investigations to be able to follow the money in the power chain all the way up to them, their strategy is often to take out the middleman. Erin did an article recently on journalists who've been killed. There were over 2,000 cited in that article. Many people have probably heard of the carjacking or car hacking, really, of Michael Hastings, who played a key role in bringing down General Stanley McChrystal, and he had been harassed by FBI agents, just like Jeff Bradstreet was, literally the day before that he supposedly crashed his car. But anybody who's in the know on these things know that they can take over and hack those cars, and there was evidence of explosives in the car. And Andrew Breitbart, who was coming out with a story on Obama just before the election, was killed. Gary Webb, the famous journalist from the San Jose Mercury, was exposing the CIA drug smuggling, and then was found shot twice in the head. I mean, this one, it would make you laugh if it weren't so tragic. Who has the wherewithal to shoot themselves the second time in the head? Then in the area of energy inventors, which cuts close to home for us, I've been involved in this field for 15 years. And as we reported in Thrive, the movie, Gene Malov was suspiciously beaten to death the day before he was going on Coast to Coast with David Wilcock to talk about new breakthroughs in cold fusion. Stanley Meyer was disappeared after he went public with his automobile engine that ran on water. Several acquaintances of ours, Adam Trombley and his partner Farnsworth and John Bedini and Paul Pantone. They're all, well, Paul Pantone died recently, but he was literally kidnapped, institutionalized, and then basically drugged to almost to death because he was also coming out with a water engine. And Farnsworth and Trombley were on their way to demonstrate their free energy motor at the UN and at the Senate when they were stopped by Bush Sr. and then their lab was raided and their lives were threatened, and they both had to turn to other types of work in order to stay alive. So it goes on into voter fraud, election rigging. There have been at least 7 clear assassinations having to do with the Choice Point, Diebold, and True Vote companies. There are a rash of assassinations around the whistleblowers on the international pedophilia rings at the high level of the judiciary, of the police, and of top-level government people. And unfortunately, I could go on and on with this, but my point is to make the pattern clear that there are very powerful would-be controllers who don't want the truth coming out. They don't want healing. They don't want prosperity. They want power and control, and they've made it clear over and over again that they would not only be willing to assassinate an individual, they would be willing to start fake wars that would cost the lives of millions of individuals. And not only would they be willing to do that, but if you study the lives of these sociopaths and psychopaths who are at the top of these power silos, there's a lot of evidence and testimony that they actually get off on it. So it's tragic, but we need to understand this if we're going to be effective at eliminating the obstacles to getting these healthy alternatives out. So, okay, so I want to have just a brief roundtable on, okay, so given all of this tragic information, what are the implications? In other words, what can we actually deduce from the weight of the evidence that can help us stay alive, be effective, get the word out, and bring out real solutions?